And welcome back to the Delaware Boys Dynasty Football Podcast. Ryan, say what's up to the people, man. It's good to be back.
Glad to be back. Finally got done with the recap of the 2022 draft and all the mocks that we've taken care of. So now we get into my favorite time of the year, all the buy sells. And of course, just like we did last year, we're going to start out with quarterbacks. We have a special guest tonight. Steven, you want to introduce and bring him on in the stream?
Yeah, man. Special guest on the podcast tonight.
What's up?
Yeah, we don't follow each other here on Twitter, but maybe that'll change. But Hutchinson Brown over here
right now, actually.
You see the Twitter feed here. Hutch, can you tell us where to find your work at, where we can find you at on Twitter, where we can find your Dynasty content at?
So yeah, you guys, everyone can follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF, and you can find all my content from there pretty much. I work with DLF, with Football Guys. I have my own Patreon account, and I'm also recently, this is a recent thing, me and Luke Sawhook, if you guys don't know who that is, you should follow him on Twitter. Yep. Me and him recently partnered together to start a podcast together, Hooked on Fantasy. So we recently released our first episode. It's pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, so check it out. We'd appreciate you. And I'm really just a teenager trying to make his way in the fantasy football space. I started in the industry 2.5 years ago when I was 14. So I've been just grinding and working, trying to find a space in the fantasy football industry.
Yeah, it's tough to get in here. Me and Ryan started about 2 years ago, and our platforms have drastically grown over the 2 years. And we got our golden ticket. We are playing in the Scott Fish Bowl. So before we get started on our buy-sell content, you guys want to talk about how your teams are going, how your draft's going?
I actually haven't started my draft yet. I am drafting live in New York this Saturday, so I don't really have much to speak on that. I've got the 101. I know who I'm taking, but I don't know. I haven't drafted yet, so I can't say anything.
Got you. Fair enough. Ryan, me and you have a pretty similar team build. I didn't plan on it being that way, but it's pretty similar, man. I can't lie.
Yeah, it actually bothers me how similar it was. We both had JT fall to us at 211. We're drafting out of the 2 spot, respectively. I honestly, I never, in all the mocks I've done, all I've seen, I've never really seen Trevor Lawrence. Good Lord. Jonathan Taylor fall to that point, but I'm taking them there happily. I guess my start was Allen, JT, Brees, and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I'm up to
as far as I've made it.
I'm up to around. I made my 5 and 6 pick. I had Josh Allen, JT, Daniel Jones at 311, Najee Harris come back at 4.2, J.K. Dobbins at 5.11, and Keenan Allen at 6.2.
I really want to. I love those starts. I want to shout out Daniel Jones specifically. He is someone that I think is a really nice value in these drafts because when you look at the quarterback position in this league scoring. Well, when you look at the running back scoring, the rushing bonuses are boosted, and that also goes to the quarterback position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So rushing quarterbacks, we always talk about it. Sometimes it feels like it's even overstated sometimes that rushing quarterbacks are Konami code in fantasy football. You see those guys like, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields at the top of fantasy football. But this year in the Scott Fish Bowl, even more because running backs or rush attempts get 0.25 points. So it's 4 rush attempts equals 1 full point and 1 point per first down. And Daniel Jones was a top 5 quarterback in first downs last year. When you look at rushing first downs, Daniel Jones, he's still going as a quarterback 2. I think he's easily going to finish as a quarterback 1 in this scoring format. He's set up. So getting him at that point is really nice.
Me too. And obviously, I think we all can agree here. I have an uptick in passing touchdowns. Passing touchdowns as well. Last year with 15, I can easily predict at least 25 for him. Also, no negative points for turnovers, and that's Daniel Jones' kryptonite. So I like this format there. I was very happy to get him there. But Ryan had a tough decision before we get started. Would you have taken Richardson at the 4.2, or would you have taken Daniel Jones?
I would have taken. Richardson. The thing is, he is one of the best athletes we've ever seen at the quarterback position. That's something that could be really, really good in this league, as I just mentioned a second ago. But I think that the fact that he might not start week 1 and the fact that he could be one of the more abysmal rookies we've seen in a while as a passer, I think I would take Daniel Jones. He's more established as the starter in that offense. He's going to start a good amount of games. I do think there potentially is some more upside with Richardson if he really comes out and guns blazing and has a really solid rookie season. Stain Steichen really develops him well this offseason. We could see a nice season, but I think Daniel Jones is the better bet to make there. So I would take Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. But that's a very fair debate because especially in the Scott Fish Bowl, you're looking at a tournament with thousands of people. You want upside, and Anthony Richardson really holds that. But I think the risk. I think there's still plenty of upside with Daniel Jones with the rushing capability. So I think Danny Dimes is the safer bet, the better bet to make there.
I completely agree with
exact
you.
Thoughts is like with Richardson, it's like you either get his floor or ceiling. I really don't think there's going to be in between. Yeah, I mean, I definitely go to the Scott Fish Bowl with the strategy of like, hey, if I'm going to like do anything, make playoffs, be a different team out of these like thousands of teams, like you have to be a little bit different. I was going to go with Richardson there, but like I said, the thing that broke the most back was like we're hearing rumors he might not start week 1. Like I really can't afford that. Like I don't want to start Gardner Minshew for the first 4 weeks in the Scott Fish Bowl. When like end of the day it comes down to like average score per week. If you're having like Gardner Minshew bring that down for 4 straight weeks, it's going to be hard to get that back up. So that's ultimately the decision I made to go with Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
I was for it too. But since we're talking QBs, man, let's get into it. Our buy sell QB Dynasty edition. Ryan, I want to start it off because I have a very special place in my heart for this QB this offseason. Seriously, I've been trying to get him everywhere. Tua Tagovailoa is one of my biggest buys in Dynasty. Now, you have to spend money to get money. You have to play dangerous in Dynasty football at times. If it pans out, the peripherals are great for Tua. Look at Tua. Last year, top 3 in the league in QBR. Yards per attempt, yards per completion, deep ball percentages, things like that just stand out to me when it comes to this offense. I love what Mike McDaniel has here. I love his weapons here. I love Tua's ability to have, he played very well last year. He 25 to 8 TD to interception ratio. On top of that, too, you're talking about the games missed. That's a huge thing. Tua played at QB 8 points per game last year. I think Tua's a buy. Tua's going to Dynasty 14, QB 14, 13 in that range. I think Tua's an extreme buy.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, Tua is a really, really nice buy. I mean, I feel like people forget through the first few weeks of the season what he was doing. So in weeks 1 through 10, he didn't play all the game, but in the games he fully played, here were his weekly finishes. He was QB 23 in week 1, but then QB 2 in week 2. And the rest of the weeks, 7 through 10, were QB 11, QB 1, QB 4, and QB 3. And then the bye week happened in week 12. He suffered a thumb injury and just never played the same since then. But with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle in this offense, and with Devon Achane, who is a electric player, if you get him screen passes, he's going to do some damage. Tua Tagovailoa set up really nicely in this offense. The only thing is, can he stay healthy? And I don't know. I feel like that's just like a thing that happens with a lot of football players. It's a risk with a lot of football players, is injury and health risk. I think I'm willing to take that shot. He is going a little bit later in Dynasty draft and Dynasty rankings. Like when I'm looking at my rankings, I do him ranked as my quarterback 9, and he is going around QB 13, QB 14, depending on who you're playing with. So yeah, he's a really nice value right now. I love Tua.
The only point of note I have, like I used to be like anti-Tua. I've definitely turned that corner. The only thing that really concerns me with him is like I feel like he's like 1 or 2 back concussions away from like a pretty rough situation with like going forward in his career. Especially because he hasn't signed that second contract yet. The concussions worry me a little bit. He had 2 major ones last season and made him lose major time.
It is kind of his make or break year for him this year. This is kind of the year for him. He's really got to step up.
If he doesn't play at Paul Brown Stadium, I feel like Paul Brown Stadium has been known for concussions like in these last couple of years. Like keep him out of Cincinnati and we're good. But
a wild statement.
Tua to me just stands out as a QB you want. Especially like, when you're working with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the deep ball percentage, it stands out as a top 3 completion. The yards per attempt, the yards per targets for the receivers, like it just stands out as an explosive offense. And I mean, I know the division is rough when it comes to playing defenses and things like that, but he hung up 6 touchdown passes on the Ravens. And I mean, there's standout games last year that make me think like this dude could be a QB1 that I could build around at a QB2 price.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But
absolutely.
Ryan, who you got, buddy?
Oh, I've been waiting a long
Go
time.
ahead, man. Take it, dude. This is your floor now, baby. This is what you do.
So here's the thing. Everybody's so down on Kyler Murray. I've heard people discredit him to the point saying that he's not even going to be on the Cardinals roster next year. he's fallen down boards in Dynasty. I think in Dynasty the most important thing is, yes, he did have a major injury. Yes, he will come back. Whether it is or not, I bought him twice. I can't remember what the first trade was, but I traded him for Kirk Cousins and Judy, and I got Murray in a second. I'm taking Murray in that situation every year. He's never finished outside top 10 quarterback, points per game and in season, and that's despite missing a few games in 2021. Now, obviously, he didn't finish top 10 last year, but he missed most of the season. Never had a season under 4,000 total yards, meaning passing and rushing. He's just electric outside the pocket. I don't think the talent goes anywhere. I think he'll be fine. I don't understand the hatred he's gotten in this offseason when he was going in startups in the first round last year, and now you can get him for like dirt cheap.
Yeah, he's a really a tough one because I heard you say that it's kind of crazy that people are saying he could be on another roster next year. I don't see that as very crazy to me, honestly. I mean, the Cardinals are going to be an awful team next year. They're going to be one of the worst teams, arguably having the number 1 overall pick, and they also have the Texans' first round pick. They have all the firepower in the world, even if they don't get the first pick with their own or with Houston's. They have all the firepower in the world to trade up to the first pick and draft Caleb Williams. And we know Caleb Williams is not just your Joe Schmo first overall pick. It's not Joe Schmo. The first overall pick is a great pick, but he is a difference-making talent. Caleb Williams is going to be a generational player. Like he's a prospect that people are going crazy over, and as they should. I mean, he is a fantastic quarterback. He's going to be one of the better prospects we've seen in quite a while. He's fantastic, and I would not be surprised if they took the shot and drafted Caleb Williams. Now, not saying that Kyler Murray would be on the bench. They would trade him away, and what?
Go find another roster somewhere.
Yes, he'd be on another roster. I would predict if he were to be traded, I would probably say Atlanta, if Desmond Ridder doesn't really work out, or if you send him to the Vikings because Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent in 2024, and they might not want to re-sign him to another franchise tag. Kirk Cousins has been living off that franchise tag, but they not want to sign him long-term, so they could trade for Kyler Murray if they wanted to. But I don't think that's very crazy if to think that Kyler Murray would be off the roster next year. But I do agree with you. He is a buy in Dynasty. When he's on the field, he's just electric for fantasy because he runs the football. He is so explosive with his legs, and he also has a cannon for an arm. He really does. He can chuck it down the field. I am concerned this year, though. I feel like if you're a competitor this year in your Dynasty League, I feel like this is not a year you want to have Kyler Murray. He might not start week 1, and adding on to that, an ACL tear is not going to be helpful to his running game. It's just not. Even if he comes back healthy, he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be running the football like we want him to. Yeah. So I would be more buying Kyler for the long-term game. Maybe he does move to another team. Maybe he doesn't replace and stays with the Cardinals forever. Maybe that happens. We don't know what's going to happen with him, but I wouldn't be buying him for the hopes that he makes an impact this year. I would just not be doing that because that's just not a smart bet to make. Yeah. But I do agree Kyler is very undervalued by some in Dynasty.
Yeah, when I think about it, let's just go off the last startup we did, Ryan. I believe you got Kyler Murray, I want to say late 3rd, early 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, his ADP is like the early 3rd right now, most drafts.
I got him mid 4th early in the
offseason. Mid 4. Okay, let's go with mid 4. So I'm assuming anywhere from QB 16 as the latest he went. QB 15. Let's go 15. Yeah, that's crazy to me. That's beyond crazy to me. Yeah. So you're putting him in the likes of like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Russ, Kenny, Jordan Love. That's not really fair to him. It's not fair. We can get, we can do that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like in certain startups.
More around like Daniel Jones, Geno Smith range.
Yeah.
More around there, but he is being disrespected.
Yeah, we can go with that. That's what I say. That's an extreme disrespect. Kyler Murray, like you said, is electric. He's never finished less than QB 10 in points per game or as a total season finish instead of last year. So I totally agree there. Hutch, do you have any QB you want to talk about as a buy?
So QB buy I really want to discuss. There's one out there that I think I know it might sound gross and it might not sound fun, but he's kind of being drafted, I feel like, at a price where it's just worth the shot. I want to talk about Russell Wilson. This is not a player I talk about a ton on Twitter and a ton on podcasts, actually, but something that's more recently come to my mind where it's like man, Russell Wilson's somebody that's just being really undervalued, especially in redraft, but in Dynasty as well. I think he's being significantly undervalued. Russell Wilson played awful last year. The Denver Broncos were a horrific nightmare last year on offense. But everything that could have gone wrong for Russell Wilson last year went wrong around him. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy both missed at least 6 games last year, as far as I remember. Javonte Williams tore his ACL pretty early.
Whoops. That came in from my wife. I apologize. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. Don't worry about it. But yeah, we got Javonte, very early, tore his ACL and other knee injuries, and he's gone. Tim Patrick tore his ACL before the season started. KJ Hamler was injured. He barely played. Like, you had a lot of things go wrong for this offense, and the offensive line couldn't stay healthy at all either. There were so many injuries on that O-line, so many switch-ups and changes. We were talking about it it's the same thing that happened with the Eagles in Jalen Hurts' first year fully starting, where the offensive line, it was like 14 different combos. And we talked about it with Miles Sanders as well. Miles Sanders had a down year that year, but then next year, the offensive line stayed healthy. They were elite offensive line, and Miles Sanders scored a ton of touchdowns. It's a great fantasy asset. And look at Jalen Hurts and where he's at now. Russell Wilson, and adding all along to that, just not just the skill players around him in the offensive line. If they stay healthy, he's set up for more success. But adding on, Sean Payton is now the head coach. And we know Sean Payton is an offensive genius. And, some people like to argue that Russell Wilson's a shorter quarterback. He worked with Drew Brees. Sean Payton did work with Drew Brees, who was a shorter quarterback. Yeah. And Sean Payton worked with Drew Brees when he had some arm strength concerns later in his career. Sean Payton knows how to work with quarterbacks with certain weaknesses and work around them. He really is an offensive genius, and he's going to put Russell Wilson in the situation where he can succeed. So if Russell Wilson truly is not washed, he's going to absolutely smash his ADP right now as like quarterback 20 to 24 off the board. That's just not it. He's got to be higher than that. So I think that Russell Wilson's a really nice buy in Dynasty right now, especially because in redrafts, he's being drafted around the same area, around quarterback 18 to 20. And I think people forget, he wasn't QB 35 last year in fantasy. He was QB 20. He was QB 20 last year. He was actually a QB 2 for fantasy leagues. Like and he's being drafted around there right now.
Yeah, and for the Broncos, it was historically bad last year as an overall season. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there was a lot of negatives that played out around him. I mean, it's a huge list. The biggest thing, though, on top of Sean Payton was the revamp. You bring in Mike McGlinchey. That's a huge pickup there. They want to bolster the O-line. Samaje Perine, they bring in him to give Javonte that time he needs if he's not 100%. These ankle injuries always tend to find Jerry Jeudy. It's very unfortunate. But Jerry Jeudy, to me, is one of my breakouts pegged. Love Jerry Jeudy this season going into it if he's 100% healthy. We'll see the role Greg Dulcich plays. I like the Marvin Mims pick. So there's a lot of situational things around Russ that make him more appealing this year. So I totally agree with Russ. I'll totally agree with Russ being a buy as well.
Yeah, he would have been my honorable mention. I actually wanted to cover him, but there's somebody that we had to touch on because I think we both kind of put ourselves in a corner here. But I would have loved to touch on Russell. So you kind of already said everything I was going to about him. So I'm glad someone got in. I think new coaching is going to do wonders for him. And I hate to blame it on the coach last year, but Nathaniel Hackett was awful.
He was terrible. Yeah, he really was awful.
It was awful. But collectively, Ryan, I mean, I also want to talk about one more guy. That would be T-Law. So with T-Law, we're talking about in the range, let's say QB 6, 7, 8 in that range. Depends on how you feel about Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, and the rushing upside there. If I have a QB pegged that I think is going to take the most significant increase in their dynasty value, it would be T-Law for me. We go back to the rookie year. Urban Meyer just wasn't it. The fit didn't work. It was terrible. We then see the significant jump you want to see, the completion percentage, significant jump there, 25 to 8 touchdown interception ratio, the huge playoff game and the comeback against the Chargers. He looked a little overmatched in the Kansas City game at times, but what I saw from T-Law, the addition of Calvin Ridley, Doug Peterson likes to use multiple backs here too, so I like the addition of Tank Bigsby to this offense as well. There's just a lot of skill position players that I like collectively around Trevor Lawrence, and I want to buy him everywhere before his ADP and his dynasty value increases.
Yeah, I like this one. I mean, he's already really hard to acquire though. I've tried. It's very difficult. Right. He's already valued very highly, so it is tough. But he could take another jump this year. He really could take that jump to the elite tier this year.
That's what I was going to touch on. Is like I don't really consider him a buy because like where do you have him like pegged like peak in Dynasty? Because right now he's got to be going top 8 quarterbacks in Dynasty. You think
I consider him seven.
He's QB 7 or 8 in most
QB
leagues.
7, 8. So I guess my question is like how much higher do you see him going above like a Justin Herbert or like above Justin Fields? Like I think these rushing quarterbacks are kind of taking that extra step.
I personally for my long-term game, I would take Lawrence over Justin Fields. I know the Konami code QBs, I know how special they are, but when I'm talking about a 10-year plus run of like elite QB play, I'm gonna take Trevor Lawrence. And like you said, that third-year jump, this is going to be the year where I think the jump is the most significant. If you remember going into year 1 and year 2, Justin Herbert's dynasty value increased. I mean, we were talking about Justin Herbert last year before the season and the injuries as a QB3. Drops down a little bit, terrible injury, played through a lot. I think you could talk about Trevor Lawrence in that same aspect. Do I see him throwing for 5,000 yards like J Herb? Depends on the passing attempts, but at the same time, I like the elite efficiency. He only threw 8 interceptions last year. He was very, very good at not turning the ball over. That's another key thing that I like as well.
Well, I'm kind of in on rookie year when he threw like 17 in his rookie year.
Yeah. I'm gonna say year 2 was a huge. I'm gonna say he only threw 8 last year, so I was big on that. That's another thing that stands out to me. I think that his dynasty value is going to increase. I really do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get the addition of Calvin Ridley. He already has that chemistry with Christian Kirk. So, like, and most of the time when a younger quarterback gets like a high-end receiver, which I consider Ridley to be, some don't, but I think he's got a chance to make another step. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see if Ridley can get back to form after missing 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons. How you want to look at it?
About 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, about a year.
It's really tough with Ridley. I think Lawrence, it really all depends on if Lawrence can really take that step into that next tier where he's like in the Joe. Because right now it's like Mahomes, Hurts, Allen in their tier, and that's like Burrow, Jackson in a tier, and then it's like Herbert, Lawrence, Fields, or like Herbert sometimes in the Burrow tier. Outside of Herbert, outside of Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen, it gets a little messy. But I think Lawrence could take that next step where he's like, okay, this guy's definitely top 4, top 5 in Dynasty. I think it really all depends on Calvin Ridley and what he does in this offense. I'm personally betting against Calvin Ridley this year. I was all in on him before he broke out. I was a Calvin Ridley guy. And after a couple of years, it's just been brutal for him, like with the mental health situation, with the betting and the gambling and coming back to a new team, a whole new offense. He's 28 years old now. He'd be 29. I think he's 29 in December, actually. I might not be remembering that right, but he is an older wide receiver now. I'm a little bit skeptical of Lawrence taking that step in that elite tier because he doesn't run the ball as much either. So I feel like it all really depends on Calvin Ridley, and I'm not betting on him massively, which is it's tough. I love Lawrence, but I think for fantasy he might always be like just outside. But
Fair enough. Yeah. How we always have our guys, though. You got to have your guys, and that's attached to your heart. So he's one to me. So I'm going to bet on my guy.
If there's one more quarterback is there one more quarterback I can shout out? Is that cool?
Shout it out, man.
All right. So there's one that I don't know if people are gonna like this one actually. There's a lot of people that are down this guy right now, and respectively so. I'm not saying this guy's going to be elite. I'm not saying this guy's going to be great, but hear me out. I think that Desmond Ridder might be a bit undervalued in fantasy football drafts. And right now he's ranked as my QB 24. Deli loved it. Right now he's ranked as my QB 24 in Dynasty, which is not too far above his ADP. Right now he's around 28. So it's not massively, not a massive difference. But I think there is a little bit of value to be had here with Desmond Ridder. I feel like because some people like to bet on Jordan Love and bet on Sam Howell over this guy. And I'm just kind of I'm a little bit worried about that because Desmond Ridder, when you look at the team around him, you got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. Are that three, that wide receiver, running back, wide receiver core, that tight end, running back, wide receiver core, those three right there, most trios in the NFL don't beat that. Like those three together are really, really great. And he has arguably the best offensive line in the entire National Football League right on him. And it's all set up for him to succeed. Like it really is. He has all the weapons in the world. He has all the opportunity to succeed. And I didn't love him as a prospect coming out. But even if he doesn't do great, even if he doesn't step up like we want him to be great, those three players and the offensive line are going to pad his stats up a little bit. He's going to be doing a little bit better. That even like I think he's going to outperform Sam Howell this year. He's going to outperform Jordan Love this year for fantasy. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he outperformed Mac Jones this year for fantasy either. Because Desmond Ridder as well, things people don't like to talk about with him is his running ability. In college, he put up 40 yards per game throughout his college career. That's a 7. I mean, if you do the math real quick, I had the number on another podcast. I shouted it out and I couldn't remember the number, but it was about 44 yards per game. If you put that on a 17-game pace, that's 748 rushing yards.
Yeah.
I'm not projecting that for him this year. Don't project that for him this year. But if he puts up like a 400 rushing yard season with a handful of touchdowns, I mean, that's a really, really nice pump you're going to get from Desmond Ridder. So if you want to have him as a QB3 in Dynasty just sitting on your bench, I think he can fill in weeks for you as a QB2. And obviously, the future for him is not very bright. The Falcons, well, the thing is, like the Falcons, their draft capital thing is going to be really concerning because I don't think they're going to be in a spot because they have a really good defense. They've had a lot of pieces this offseason. They have a really good offensive core. Like they are a quarterback away from winning some real games, but they're not going to be in the position to pick a quarterback. Their team is too good. They're probably going to be around like a 7-win team. Like the Commanders have been there for the past few years. They've had a really good team, but they don't have the quarterback, and they've been like 7-9 win team. I think that's where the Falcons are going to be this year. So they're not going to be in a position to pick a quarterback unless they sell the farm and sell everything to trade up to number 2 or number 1 and get one of these guys. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We'll see. But if Desmond Ridder, with the core around him, puts up reasonable stats, like okay stats, it could be enough to save him his job and get him to the next season. Maybe they bet on a year 3 breakout from him. So I think Desmond Ridder is somebody that's being severely undervalued in Dynasty because people are saying that he is already toast. He's already done. This guy's played like 4 games. And in those games, he actually wasn't horrific. I think he only threw 1 interception. Or no, he didn't throw any interceptions, actually.
No, he didn't. He didn't. Ryan, you would know.
I don't think he threw any interceptions. He didn't throw many touchdowns. He didn't throw many interceptions. He was above a 65% completion rate in those 4 games. It's not bad. I think Desmond Ridder is somebody that's undervalued. I think he's somebody that, as a QB3, as a dart throw, I'm very happy to take that dart.
Yeah, I'm actually happy you brought him up. You said you didn't like him coming out as a prospect. I did. I spent a lot of like back end seconds on Ridder. So I own him in a lot of leagues for pretty cheap. And you kind of touched on it, man. Like with that offense, with Bijan taking attention away from the quarterback position, away from Pitts, away from London, you get all these opportunities for him, and all he really has to do is just take care of the football in this offense, and I think he'll be fine. Now, I don't think he's going to go out here and ball and end up being like a top 2015 quarterback.
I bet hard against that.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to do that. But like you said, I mean, at QB3 price right now, I mean, that's where he's going. I don't hate the value there at all.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you too. When we talk about the Falcons and we talk about the running volume and the rushing volume that Arthur Smith projects and for this offense, he threw the ball 115 times in the 4-game stretch. And I mean, it came out to just under 30 attempts a game. I mean, for that, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's not terrible volume, when it comes to a QB3 and a guy that like you guys said, needs to be a game manager just to save his job for the 2024 season. Like I said, I don't mind the Desmond Ridder price tag either. I mean, QB24, like you said, I mean, that's a decent price tag.
No, he's later than that. I haven't ranked his QB24. He's going like 28. He's like 28. Yeah, he's later than 28. Yeah, he's late.
Ryan, I think we had him, like 26? 25.
I don't know what he is. I have to pull it up. He's somewhere in that area.
Yeah. So let's go through this, boys. Let's do a Ryan, I'll let you start with your QB sell and we'll go from there.
All right. So I kind of struggle with a little bit sells with quarterbacks, but I do kind of have one that kind of stands out to me. Give me Derek Carr as a sell this year. A lot of these quarterbacks, when they get to different teams, they get that jump up. Now, I've drafted Derek Carr as a QB3 on plenty of rosters, and if you can get like an Olave owner to pay a QB2 price for Derek Carr, I don't think he's like a fantastic quarterback. He normally finishes around the 15 mark in full seasons. He had a pretty season last year. I think the offense that he's in New Orleans actually gets a little bit worse than he had with the Raiders with Devontae and Jacobs. Now he has Olave and Kamara on the back end of his career. I think if you can get, like I said, second round value for Derek Carr, I'm pulling the trigger on that. I mean, like I said, I struggle with sells for quarterbacks because I don't QBs are king in Superflex and Dynasty, the format that we play. But if I just said one, I'd definitely say Derek Carr.
Yeah, I would totally respect him. I mean, he's a veteran, and he's not really like he's just not a guy that's ever taken that step really in fantasy. Yeah. And going into the new Saints offense, not a ton of weapons, and you got a lot of concerns there for Derek Carr. So I get it, but you said you want to sell him for a second round pick.
No, I'm saying like if you can sell him at like a QB2 price. Like I'm saying last year I was kind of.
I would not sell him for a second. I'd keep him at that point. I would want a first. So try to get a first in a super flex league because you can get a first for most quarterbacks in a super flex league. They're just so valuable. But if you can get a first for Derek Carr, I'd take that. I'd take that all day.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, now Derek Carr is a weird QB to me. So like when we go back to the 2015, 2016 seasons and we're looking at it and we're talking about Derek Carr in the real life NFL MVP conversations, at this point,
he was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, it was a Pro Bowler. So at this point, we're also talking about a guy that never took that significant step that we thought he would take. Derek Carr has always been safe to me. He's a safe pick, but there's weeks he may win you, but it's not very likely. He's just a safe QB2. And, back like mid to back end QB2, it is what it is. But he does elevate the play of his wide receivers and tight ends. He's produced 5 wide receiver ones in his career. I include Darren Waller in that conversation, wide receivers / tight ends. Last 3 years, he's done it too. But so it's weird to me because I think Olave's play elevates due to Derek Carr. But at the same time, I know that Derek Carr is safe, and that's it. I don't have any league-winning upside owning Derek Carr. You know what I mean? So I agree with you on the sell. But at the end of the day, what's the price tag you could sell Derek Carr for at 31 years old? It's
tough. I don't know if you can get it.
I've seen him sold in a few leagues to Olave owners for a pretty decent price. I'd have to pull it up and find it, but I've seen him go for kind of expensive and kind of like, whoa. But on top of that, he doesn't really offer much rushing upside. So really, you're just getting him as like a pure passer because he doesn't rush the ball. He never has, and I don't know. He's just never taken that step that we see him. Like you said, hasn't taken that step yet. And at this point in his career, I don't think he will.
I think he's just safe. I think he's just safe. That's just what he is. He's safe.
But I don't want safe. Safe doesn't win you championships.
Exactly.
That's my whole thing.
Exactly. That's my main point with Derek Carr. But it's weird too, like I said, because he elevates his wide receiver and tight end play. It's weird.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about a wide receiver conversation, it's different because, like you said, I mean, he elevates everyone. I expect Chris Olave to play significantly better than he did last year. But, I mean, that doesn't help anything at the quarterback position.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one QB that I am dying to talk about when it comes to my sell. That being Dak Prescott. Hear me out, and I'm going to tell you why. We're going 5 years, and since we've seen the rushing floor that Dak offers. He started his career with 3 straight 6 touchdowns or more on the ground. Offered you a pretty safe floor of about 300 to 350 yards. The ankle injury happens. Things significantly change for Dak Prescott. Significantly change. He plays safe. He's not running the ball like he did. And granted, it's not a whole lot of rushing volume, but it was enough to sneak in a couple of points here and there, and it was solid. It was a solid floor. We lose Kellen Moore. I like the addition of Cooks. That's fine. We lose Kellen Moore, who tends to work intermediate to deep parts of the field when he comes to his offensive play calling. We bring in Brian Schottenheimer. Then we have Mike McCarthy, who's always been a run-first head coach. And then we talk about the games missed. Last year, he only played 12 games. Not the year before that, but 2 years ago, we're talking about only 5 games played with the ankle injury. And last year, we're talking about the most turnovers he's ever had in his career. So with that being said, it's just a guy that I think his value is diminishing very quickly. I remember 2 to 3 years ago, we were talking about Dak as a top 6 Dynasty QB. Now we're talking about Dak towards the back end. So I know the price softens the blow a little bit, but he's just a QB that I'm looking to avoid.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say that, but the only problem is with me for selling Dak Prescott is the fact that you want to say they are going to run more, but I don't know how much that's going to happen because the Cowboys lost Zeke Elliott last year and they did not replace him. Like they lost 230 carries and they added wide receivers. They added Brandon Cooks. I mean, they lost Elton Schultz, but they did add Brandon Cooks. They drafted a couple tight ends. Like They have a couple. They added a couple of receiving pieces and only lost running pieces. When you look at that for an NFL team, that usually shows more pass attempts. Well, I do agree. The coaching staff probably going to seem more run heavy. The transactions of the team are showing us they want to pass the ball more, because they're not going to give Tony Pollard 200. I mean, I think it'd be unrealistic for them to give Tony Pollard 275, 300 carries, because that's the pace they would need to give him for them to keep the same rushing pace. If they want to keep the same running pace as last year, they'd have to give Tony Pollard like 275, 300 carries. And they'd have to give Malik Davis a few, Ron Jones a few. And we don't even know if Ron Jones is going to make the team, let alone get carries in this offense. Like,
I don't think he makes the team either.
Unless they add a veteran back, like if they add a Dalvin Cook, then the run first team is going to happen. Or if they bring back Zeke, if they bring in Fournette or Hunt, maybe that could come back. But for now, I'm thinking this offense is actually going to pass more. So Dak Prescott's somebody for me that I haven't been ranked as my quarterback 10, which is around ADP. So I'm fine with him. I understand the coaching staff does concern me, though. They want to run the ball. I just don't think they're going to be able to with their current offense. The passing more is going to be the smart choice.
Fair enough. Is there anybody you looking to sell at your QB position?
So for me, I think you actually mentioned this guy as a buy before the show. I see him as a sell personally. I just don't see him getting back to where he was a few seasons ago, and that's Deshaun Watson. I just don't want a part of him. I really don't. I mean, I really don't see him getting back to where he was a couple of years ago after all the media and what's going on with him and, all the stuff that's happened with him. It's ridiculous. And then the fact that he hasn't played football in a couple of years, it's really, really hard to say that Deshaun Watson's just going to come back in here and be an elite fantasy asset again. Like, it's really, really difficult just to put that in there. And especially when you watched him last year, like, he wasn't just like, oh, he wasn't great, he's a little rusty. No.
No, he was bad. He
wasn't a starting quarterback. He wasn't playing football at an NFL level. He was playing football at he's playing football on like an XFL level. Like, really. Yeah. He just was not playing football at an NFL level. He was really a horrific player. Right. And I just don't think that we see Deshaun Watson get back to that elite stage again. And also, I don't like to put this into it because, it's not like I don't love to put this into him, but it's hard to root for him too because of all the stuff he's done. It's really difficult to root for him. I don't like to put that into it, but I don't like to put that into it because, fantasy football is not always like, I just don't like the players, so I won't draft them. It's not how it works sometimes. Sometimes they're a valuable player. But Deshaun Watson's seriously a player that I'm seriously concerned about, that I don't think he's going to get to that next stage again. I just don't think he's going to get there. So I've not touched him in a Dynasty league.
Yeah, I don't personally. Well, two notes. One, I can't believe I'm not selling Dak. Just to go back to that real quick, I just want to say personally on my side, I don't want to sell Dak. Trevor, God, jeez, I almost said Trevor Lawrence again. My lord, God, I'm off now. Who are we just talking about? Good lord,
Watson.
Thank you. Oh my God, my brain just went blank. Holy hell. I apologize, boys. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, I don't want anything to do with him either. For the most part, his price tag is pretty high, considering people kind of want to sell him for that QB5 price that he was before. So I don't want to take the chance. Like you said, he looked awful last year. He had a couple of games where like, okay, you saw glimpses, but until he gets out in the field, I don't want to buy him for the price he's at right now.
No.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about his ADP. It's anywhere from 9 to like 12 in that range, depending on how you feel.
Yeah, he's in that range. Yeah.
I will say though, especially when we're talking about the red zone play from Deshaun Watson, it was bad. I mean, we talk about the stalled drives from them. He had a 39% completion percentage in the red zone. I want to say from that time he came back from that, he was top 3 in the NFL in red zone turnovers. It was really bad from Deshaun Watson. So I do agree. I did mention him as a buy though, and I do think that like in the slim glimmer of hope that he does return to the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson status. I remember he hasn't played football in 2 years. I know he's a hard guy to root for, but at the end of the day, we've seen Deshaun Watson play in the NFL at an elite level. I don't think it's unrealistic it's unrealistic to talk about that. It's a possibility that he gets back to that level. Maybe
no, it's not unrealistic at all.
Yeah,
I would just bet against it.
No, that's fine. I completely understand it. I mean, I guess you're right too, because at the end of the day, it's tough to buy a player at that high of a price tag and gamble on a hope.
Right.
You're because man, like because when you're in a dynasty draft, especially a super flex, when you take a quarterback like this, you are like when you draft a top 12 quarterback, you are establishing like this is one of my cornerstones. Like this is my guy. Deshaun Watson is one of those players where it's like this could completely fall in its face. Like I would not be surprised if after this season, Deshaun Watson's not ranked as a top 20 dynasty quarterback. Wow. Would not shock me in the slightest. Because he could play mediocre football and he would be destroyed in AP. Absolutely demolished. Like he would just be sunk so far because the Browns would be a bad team at that point. Amari Cooper's aging. Like that would just sink him so far. Nick Chubb is aging as well. That would sink him so far in the dynasty rank because if he has another mediocre season, which I honestly think he's going to, I think he might have. So because Ivan ranks him at QB 13 right now, I really want to move him down behind the two rookies, Bryce Young and Cheetah Stroud, that I still have ranked behind him. I want to move him down there. I also think I might even take Daniel Jones. I seriously might. That's something I would even consider. I mean, he's just the running quarterback that's really good for fantasy. I think that's crazy. I think that's a really big hot take, but it's something I would at least consider. I don't think I'd do it. I think at the end of the day, I'd probably take Deshaun, but I'm just out on Deshaun. I don't think he's going to get back there.
If I can touch on one more quarterback real quick. Oh,
absolutely.
Go for it. Just like a situational standpoint. Look, I know this guy. He's got best receiver in the league, Justin Jefferson. They just added Jordan Addison. They added T.J. Hawkinson. They got rid of Dalvin Cook. So everything points to a solid season out of Kirk Cousins. I think that's more of a reason to sell him more than anything. Yeah, because he finished QB6. That was his best finish in the last 5 years. We don't even know if he's going to be on this Vikings team next year. This is his last year on the contract. So I think if you can get any high-end value for Kirk, I think go for it. Get out before the wheels fall off. I don't know if the Vikings are going to commit another contract. Or
I don't know if they will. They might be, because the thing is, we're talking about him having a really, really nice season next year because the pastimes could go up because they lost a running back. They added a first-round wide receiver. If he has a really good season, the Vikings might have no choice. If the Vikings make the playoffs, maybe get a playoff win, they might not have no choice because the 2024 free agent class, I don't know if you guys have looked at it, is pretty bad. It's bad.
Very bad. It's very bad.
And the Vikings don't have draft capital. They're not going to have it. So they're not going to be in a position where they're going to be able to get a quarterback unless they literally traded 5 first-round picks to get to their number 1 overall pick. They're just not going to be able to get there right now. So or maybe, you know what, maybe they could trade for, there might be a couple quarterbacks on the trade block next year. You look at Kyler Murray. If they draft Caleb Williams, there's a couple quarterbacks they could trade for. But overall, the quarterback choices are going to be very slim for the Cardinals. They're not going to be plentiful. And Kirk Cousins is going to have a really good season. They might have their hands forced to re-sign him, maybe to a franchise tag again, which he would make. He's made so much money off the franchise tag. It's ridiculous.
So much money.
So yeah, I do agree. Kirk Cousins' time is coming to an end. I think you have you probably have this year, maybe another year window. That's probably it. But if you're a contender, I actually think Kirk Cousins is a decent buy because people are really just low on him in Dynasty because he's older, and people are seeing that next year he could be gone.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been a great buy sell. I appreciate both of you guys being here. Last thing before we get out and we allow you to talk about where we can find your content again. I saw a tweet from you the other day. It was retweeted and it was about you doing a fantasy league with your dad. Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, me and my dad, we're starting a league this year. The name is still up for debate, but we're trying to start a fantasy league this year about parents and kids bonding over fantasy football. So what we've been able to do, we're coming together with 2 leagues, and I think they're already filled. We still have a couple people waiting to click the invite link that I sent them. We're still waiting on that, but it's pretty much completely filled. But and I'm not making any more leagues. We have 2 leagues, and I can't commission more than 2. I just can't do it. But basically, what the league is about a parent and their kid, or multiple kids, or multiple parents, whatever you want to do. And they co-manage a team together in this league. And then we have 10 to 12 people, 10 to 12 pairs of people joined together in a fantasy league. And it doesn't matter. It's not fathers and sons. It could be, mothers, daughters, fathers, daughters, mother, son, whatever it wants to be. It could be anything you want it to be. And we're just trying to create bonding moments over fantasy football and just create a love for the game for our kids at a young age. It's funny though, because you might think that was the story with me and my dad. I actually got my dad into fantasy football. My dad did not know anything, barely knew anything about football before I started playing. So I actually got him into it rather than the other way around, which is kind of funny. Usually people assume the other thing. But yeah, I'm just trying to create, love for the game of football and for fantasy football at a young age. That's really what the point of the league is.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. For how much we love fantasy football. My story is flipped. I started playing fantasy football because of my dad 16, almost 17 years ago. So it's a love, and he still plays to this day. He's not as into it as we are, obviously. He can't keep up with, multiple dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, but it's still cool that, he'll call me, text me over football. It's a great time. I think that's a great thing you're doing for the community. So I want to say congratulations to that. And I also want to say
Thank you,
congratulations
man.
to you and
Appreciate it.
Luke for your podcast starting.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, man. That means a lot. And I really appreciate you giving me the platform to talk about that. Yeah, like it was crazy. When I tweeted that, I did not think people would have so much interest. And I got like 40 replies and like 10 DMs of people saying like, hey, we need to get in this league. And I'm like, I can't do this, guys. I can't do this. Like, I'm not Scott Fish. I can't host this giant tournament this year. I just can't do it this year. But it's really fun to see all the interest and see the people coming together with this. I'm hoping that down the line this could become a bigger thing. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get out of here, man, can you tell the people again where we can find your content and where we can find you at on Twitter?
So yeah, you guys go follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. My handle is right on the username here on StreamYard here on the stream. And yeah, I do content with football guys. And I was actually like right before the show started, I was looking at my emails. I got some emails from them about being more in their YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. They've been working around things with their YouTube channel. I think I might be on there more. So keep an eye out for that. I write with DLF. And I have my podcast with Luke Sawhook. And I have a Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/clutchhutch, the link is in my Twitter bio. You can find it there. And yeah, it's pretty much all the content I do. I'm all over the place. And if you ever have questions for fantasy football, just tag me in a tweet or DM me. My DMs are open, I believe. At least I might have done it wrong, but I believe they're open. You can DM me any fantasy football question. I'd love to answer for you.
Awesome. Ryan, before we get out of here, man, say what's up to the people. Say your spiel, baby. It's your time.
Yeah, always. Thanks for being here again for this podcast. Just super excited to get into the buy sells. Thanks, Hutch, for coming in this pod. Honestly, just big shout out to you real quick. 16 in this in this world is insane. I couldn't imagine being
appreciate it, man. I appreciate it
out there. I know there's more of a platform now than I was when I was 16, but still, just to put yourself out there, be successful at an early age really sets you up for the long term. So I think you got a lot of special things coming for you. You already got a lot going on. So just big shouts to you for coming on today, taking your time.
Thank you, man.
And I'm just glad for people listening. Get this series started. Like I said, this is my favorite time of the year, buys and sells. Can't get into the wide receivers. This is where I really shine. Hopefully we'll do that next podcast, but still up to debate. But like always, love you guys. Love everybody that supports us. Glad to have you here just as like a building block for our future.
Yeah. Again, I'd like to give a shout out to our platforms, RPO Football. We appreciate you guys, and Yards Per Fantasy. You guys are awesome. You guys are the reason we do this. And of course, obviously the fans. We appreciate you guys. And on that note, we are out.